Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Hey folks, welcome back. It's week 2, probably the last week on the Pike, what I'm calling the Pike Enterprise, just to keep it separate from all of the other versions of Enterprise. It's the 1,000 scale Discovery Enterprise. Well, there are ships named Discovery, there are ships named Enterprise, there are shows named Discovery and Enterprise. It can get confusing after a while. So I'm calling this the Pike Enterprise because it has become synonymous with the new Ensign Mount version Captain Pike Enterprise, since the original Pike Enterprise was also known as the Pilot Enterprise. It can get darn confusing. So I'm calling this the Piker Prize, or the Pike Enterprise, or Piker Prize, whichever way you want to call it. That's what this one is. And we got about halfway done last week, because, well, more than halfway, about 2/3. Because we got it built. We got the basic big shapes painted. This week we're doing the Aztecs, and as everybody knows, Aztecs can be a job unto themselves. Follow me to the work desk. Here you can see this is the Aztec pattern as we all know and love it. It is this is the refit. And you can see it is a series. Now this was all taken off of some old instructions that I've got, but it shows you the basic layout of the Aztecs as seen, the basic, positive and negative Aztecs from the refit. Well, dear friends, this is what the Aztecs look like for the Piker Prize. A little bit more complicated, wouldn't you say? And I've spent the weekend getting these things ironed out and ready to put down. And whereas here's the first thing we are going to have to, the nomenclature that we're going to have to get used to. This, for purposes of the instructions and everything else, from here to here, or get it in camera, from here to here is one hull section. This pie wedge is going to be one hull section. Now, the first thing you need to know is that the Aztecs for the Piker Prize the design spans 2 hull sections, except right here where it's one hull section. It gets very confusing. But think of it this way. Here is 2. There is 2. There is 2. Here's 1 and 1. And then the whole thing repeats again. I don't know why they did that. Not going to ask. That's just how it is. So here is 2. Here is 2. And then 1 and 1 again. And then there's 2s on the backside. The templates that I am making still operate on the positive and negative methodology. So what you get, the wedges that I make have the positive and negative shapes in it. But what happens is that you take the positives from this shape, put them down here, and then the negatives from that shape go here. And then the same and the same. But I've got smaller ones cut for these side sections where they only span one hull section. I will try to explain this as we go forward. I've got a separate saucer. I couldn't buy just one of these kits, but I've got a separate saucer that I can use as a test bed, because I went ahead and glued the saucer when I put the lights in it, glued it down. It's not going to be as easy to work on, but I could show you the method here, put the templates down, and then once it's all been cleared up, I can transfer those over to or put another set down on the actual building kit. Okay, we're back. I've got my shapes cut out for the pie wedges for the top of the saucer, and I'm ready to start putting them down. Got my map to go by. We're just gonna start laying these down and see how well it goes. Okay, I've got the first shape down, and I gotta tell you, these boys are delicate. You want to have a steady nerve and not too many cups of coffee in the morning when you're dealing with this. Now, the way I got them off the sheet was to go in and I plucked out the negative shapes first and kind of set them to the side. They'll go right here in this formation, but it was easier to remove those littler shapes to make this big one easier to handle. So now we just work our way up the saucer. Okay, I've had a bit of a rethink, and if you know me, you know that's not unusual. I decided to try to go side to side rather than building all the one way up, because I was afraid of losing track of some of the tinier parts by just setting them aside. So by putting them next to where they needed to go, it got them off my plate, so to speak. And yeah, you can always pick things up and reposition them when you need to, but it also helps in the orientation of where when I want to put the next one up, I'll know how far up it needs to go because I've got this one sitting next to it. So and I can use that as a gauge block. So of course the farther up on the saucer you get, the tinier the pieces get, and that is a bit of a head scratcher. So yeah, I may need a good stiff drink after this. Okay, there you go. It did take a while. I'm sure the more I do this, the quicker I'll be at it. But you definitely want to get yourself a pair of tweezers. And if you don't have a magnifying headset, you may want to invest in one of those. I find it at my age, I need it anyway. But you can see how it does follow all the way up. You don't even need the topmost piece. So I may either delete that or save it for you. I just dropped it here, so you could put it on the bridge here if you wanted to. There you go. Since the bridge doesn't really have its own pattern, you could use some of your spare bits there. I quite like that. But what you would do at this point would be to trim the top part off like that. You just trim that top part off, and then if you wanted to, you could move it up and put it on the what on the old ship would be the B and C deck. If you wanted to just do, you'll have a ton of these because you, like I say, you've got multiple copies of this pattern to put down, so you could use that to further decorate your hull somewhere else. Either on, you could put it on the nacelles if you wanted to. It's up to you. But that is the result of using one of these shapes. Gave me all of that. Okay, 2 more sections down. Did these 2 originally, now doing these 2. I know it's not much to show, but it took so long and I'm so proud that I needed to show it off. I found a way to make a note to myself. Don't put anything on these 2 sections. I just put a piece of tape there with a big old X on it, and I'm going to do the same on the other side on these 2 so that I know not to be putting any templates there. It's this one and this one that are next. And as we get to this area here where the impulse deck is and all of that, we're going to be trimming out around it anyway, so you're not going to have to worry about putting the full design up there. Alrighty, I've got this panel done now, and what I need to do is simply just take the old X-Acto and just cut the contours out that do not belong there. There. Trim that off. And now I guess the next thing to do is probably this one. Alrighty, I've got everything of the twofers, everything of the 2x2 panels done except for this one right here. Got this one laid out with the cutout for the impulse deck, and I've got one more wedge to do this, and I'm only going to need half of it, so to fill in the positive shapes here. So if when the set goes out, there will be a whole extra set of pieces there in case you are of a need to replace something. So that's good. This is the kind of stuff that helps me, tells me how many wedges I need to include. So I'm right on target with that. Okay, I've done with everything except the two singular sections, and what makes these doubly weird is that the positive for this section, when I put the positives down here, when I put the positives on this section here, the negatives don't go here. Positives here, the negatives go all the way over here, and then the positives from here the negatives go all the way over here. So like I said, it gets weird. One last section to go, but you can see this is the half section, and the positive of that and the negative comes over here. In some ways, these ones are a little bit easier to work with because they're not as big pieces of vinyl, and they're not as flimsy. So not that I'm going to cut the rest of them in half like that, forget it, but that's not such a bad little obstruction as I thought it was going to be. So okay, the top is done. The top of the saucer is done, and people always ask me, how long does it take you to do that? Well, I started at about 10:30 this morning. It is about 2:30 now. 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, 2:30. So that's about 4 hours of work. And some of that was just feeling out the process. It did go quicker the longer I did it because I got into the groove, but that is about 4 hours of work. So the first two are down, or the first full set is down on the bottom. And the thing about the bottom is, it doesn't have the bridge and the impulse deck to worry about. It only has the bottom of the impulse deck. So you see a whole lot more of the full pattern. I actually extended it out so that it covers this bottom outer ring, and it goes all the way up to the inner phaser turret ring. So that's how she rolls, and now I just have to carry that over the rest, although I think I'm going to just wait and do that tomorrow. Morning, folks. It's Tuesday, and we're going to pick right up where we left off yesterday. I'm going to finish doing the aztecs to the bottom of this trial saucer to make sure everything is working, and then we are going to go on to the next thing. And the next thing is, you may notice I have taken just a couple pieces of sheet styrene. I bought this actually in a 4x8 roll, and I just been cutting it up and using it for about a year now. I've had just little pieces of it, and every time I need to get like a strip for something where I'm making a light box or I am scratch building something, I'll just cut a chunk off of this sheet. Much cheaper to buy it this way. See if you have a local plastics manufacturer or plastics outlet in your town, and drive on in and pick up a sheet. You can get a 4x8 foot sheet of this much cheaper aggregate than you could ever get it if you buy it in a little bitty bits. Now the only problem with it is you don't have a lot of choices in the thickness, so you kind of take what they've got. So I got a thick one and a thin one. Anyway, getting back to why I've done this is basically I am trying out my painting technique that I want to use on this saucer and indeed the rest of the ship. But to do that, I don't want to try it out on the saucer. That's foolishness. I'm going to use this mock-up here to try it out. This is what the big boys do. This is what they do at ILM. This is what they do at it's what they did at the Smithsonian and on the restoration of the Enterprise. They mocked up a whole secondary hull pretty much, and they tried out their colors on it just to make sure that their formulations would look right. So I digress. What I've done is I've started with your bare sheet stock, and then I put a coat of the primer on it, just like I did on the ship. And then I started with the JN Gray, which is just like I did on the ship, and I'm just making some big ass shapes. No big, no mystery there. And then I'll mask them just like, well, not just like, I'm using the same materials and the same patterns, but I'm not going to try to lay it out as intricately. And then put the the sky gray over top of it, basically recreating every step that I've gone so far on what I've got painted on the ship. And then I will try out my aztecing technique on it to see whether it'll work. And if it works, we sing a happy song, we dance a happy dance, and then we carry it over to the saucer. If it doesn't work, we cry and crawl into a cave for about a month. Okay, so I'm continuing work on the bottom of the saucer, and just like I did on the top, I marked these 4 sections off with tape so that I didn't mistakenly put templates down on them, because they get the weird half templates. And here's just a general tip I will give you, that if you are putting templates down and you find that your piece of vinyl is maybe a little wider than the space you've got to put it in, you should never be afraid of just taking the X-Acto, just putting a little slice in it, squeezing things together. Or if you have to extend a piece out, you know, line it up with your outer edge and then put in a little patch piece. That's just the nature of the beast, really. Sometimes vinyl will stretch, particularly this real fine stuff. If you are peeling it off the vinyl, you might pull it a little out of shape. And if you have to cut it up to make it fit, then cut it up to make it fit. You know, they come out of the plotter pretty uniform, but sometimes little glitches can happen. And sometimes you will find that the shape of these panels aren't exactly symmetrical either. You might think that this one here is exactly as wide as that, and it may or may not have been fudged that way from the factory, shall we say. And it's easier than trying to make specific, this panel must go in this hull piece, which can be a nightmare. I find it easier, if I need to, just, you know, slice it, move it in, spread it out if you have to. Okay, I've got all but the 2 sides done, and I'll go ahead and do those now. And I don't think anybody will begrudge you cutting some of these shapes up to make them fit a little bit better, especially if you get back when you get around the neck here, this neck hole area, which is going to be even more difficult when I go to do it on the finished kit, because I've got a whole ship in my way here. Here it's nice and easy and out in the open, la-di-da, it's a walk in the park. But if you've got your neck already attached, it becomes quite a different thing. Now, I don't know if I would ever recommend painting the Aztecs before you build the ship, but if you've got your ship done in such a way where you've got a modular plug coming out of here with all your lighting, you could very well get away with painting the top and the bottom of the saucer by itself and then attaching it, because that's a very clean, obvious joint there, and there's no filing or puttying that you need to do once that's in place. So you could very well make your saucer a separate animal and then attach it after you're done. And there you be, one bottom saucer. It is, oh, a little after 2. Yeah, I'd say this took about as much time as yesterday's took, minus the head start that I already had on it. So okay, take some pictures of that and we'll put it aside, and we'll go back to painting on these mock-up pieces. The top coat of the sky gray has had a chance to dry, and basically what we're going to do is remove the scrap maskings that I put down on here. And this is just at a best case to simulate the different conditions we have on the actual kit, where some places it's covering just primer gray, and some places it's covering the JN gray. And we're going to try our painting technique that I want to use over this and see if it is a viable idea. Okay, the tremendous news is I think my method is going to work. I tried out a couple different elements, and it looks like the winner is the Tamiya. And it's a kind of a surprise move. I had first tried the steady, reliable Com Art Smoke. That was no good. Well, it was okay, but it was, I think it's because it was too watery. It was not going to give me the result I was looking for. I also tried a Vallejo Black Wash. That was laying on a little too thick, a little too black. But when I used the Tamiya Smoke, good old-fashioned Tamiya smoke. And I sprayed it through a template. What it did, now don't mind that gloss, I can take care of that. But what it did is it gave me a nice gray that is halfway between the lightest and darkest, which is my 2-color Aztec. Plus it lays down darker over top of the JN gray accents. So now that we know that that process works, I can go ahead and take the Aztecs that I've created for the saucer and lay them down on my finished saucer, and then spray a coat of the Tamiya smoke over top of it, and it should work. Morning, folks. It's Wednesday, and it's time to take all of what we learned yesterday and apply it to our ship. Now you'll see it's got a funky little clip hanging on here, and that's because I am epoxying this to the base, and that's what's going to help keep it level while the resin, or while the epoxy cures. So having done all of that, I would rather not be doing this kind of work while it is on a base like this, unfortunately, because I got ahead of myself last week and wanted to show it off all nice and, you know, lit up and on the base. I went ahead and finished some things that I probably wouldn't have finished in the normal course of building. So what I'm going to have to do is go back in and recover a lot of the clear parts. I'm going to take these domes off because I don't believe they were ever glued in. So we'll take those off and cover up all of the clear bits, the windows and the ones I didn't uncover, or the ones I did uncover, plus the lights and all of that. Cover that back up so that when I put the top coat of paint on, everything will be protected. Now I think what I want to do is put the Aztecs down first, because that's going to take a lot of the handling and the abuse and all that. Plus, if an Aztec covers a clear part or covers a window, there's no sense masking that again. So that'll give me, hopefully that'll take away some of the masking that I need to do. Okay, back from a late lunch and ready to go after, probably, I guess this would be the second half. Yeah, this would be the second half of the top saucer, minus all of this. So the second half should go a lot quicker than the first. Okay, I've got the first couple of wedges done on the bottom, and you can see I had to turn the whole ship upside down, and the base is kind of sticking up in midair, and it's not my favorite way to work, but it's what gots to be done. You can see how we're transitioning from the lighter color into the darker color, and there are a few windows left uncovered by the time this is done, so I can pop the let's see, let me find my sheet that's got all my tiny windows in it, because they are tiny. They are small. They are also very wee. So let me see let's see, these ones need round windows. Pop a round window off of there. Actually, I could use oversized windows where it's just covering the that needs an oval. And then this one needs a round. As long as I am covering up the areas that are still visible. Turn it around that way. These are the keystone shaped windows. Alright, I think I've come to a point where I want to stop for today. I've got all of the top done. I've got half of the bottom done. And my eyes are starting to cross. So I think it's time to hang it up for one day. We'll come back, we'll finish it tomorrow. And then we're going to see how much of the rest of the ship we can get, which should be a lot easier since it's just a generic pattern. It's not the Aztecing, which is by and large the most difficult of all the parts of it. So it's all literally downhill from here. Morning, everybody. It's Thursday, and the gateway to the weekend. I am hoping to get a lot done today. And by a lot, I mean a lot, a metric lot. Of course, I'm going to start today where I left off yesterday, and that is finishing the bottom of the saucer. I cannot stress enough that, excuse me, that if at all possible, you would be better off doing this kind of work without attaching the saucer to the rest of the ship. save that until last. This is a very obvious joint here. This joint does never need to be sanded or smoothed or puttied or anything. So you could build the entire saucer and have one little modular plug sticking out of the bottom to run your wiring down to the secondary hull, and your life would be better for it. Again, the only reason I didn't do it that way because last week I wanted to show off and show you what the whole ship looked like. And that's the price of my hubris I paid today. So, we're going to finish this off. It shouldn't take but an hour or so this morning, I'm hoping. And then we're going to get on to the fun part of starting to do the Aztec painting. I've got my methodology figured out. I've got some basic texture patterns here that I am going to be using, particularly on the long bits of the nacelles and the other body bits, and that's going to give me all what I need to get my breakup and variation here. Ladies and germs, the final bit has been put down on the bottom of the saucer, so yay! We are ready, and I've gone over and touched up the windows that have been exposed and popped some little circle templates over, even though it's not going to be that big a deal. If some of the smoke coloring gets on the windows, it's going to come right off. It's no reason not to protect them if you can. So there you go. All right, so I'm getting ready to put the smoke layer on the ship, and I've got the texture templates out now, and I'm going to be using these just to add texture onto the nacelles into the secondary hull. And I'm looking at how much smoke paint I have right now, and I think I might want to run out and pick up another bottle just so I don't run out halfway through. That's the last thing I want to have to be able to stop in the middle because I've run out of paint. So give me a minute and I'll be right back. Okay, time has come to start putting some paint on here. I've stalled long enough. The trick here is going to be not going back over too many times to the point where you have a buildup of different darks. I really do want to keep one single unifying coat on here. Ooh, I just spotted something. There were some windows here that need to be closed up. I knew it was close, but okay, I realized I was having too much fun, forgot to turn the camera on. I am just taking this piece of template material and moving it around the ship and then spraying through the holes. And picking it up and moving it again. Now this does mean I want to do some sort of blending coat over all of this because you're getting a lot of really very stark checkerboardy type looking stuff, and that's not, strictly speaking, what you're looking for. So a blending coat will be necessary. Now it's going to be tough because you're blending over both colors. So what I'm going to do is, after I have taken all of the templates off, I'm going to do a misting of the smoke color on top of everything. The problem with this smoke paint that's different from other Tamiya's is that it's stickier. Not 100% what I was looking for, but it gave me the best results. Okay, don't want to overwork it. So all I've got left really is the nacelles. Let me check the bottom of the ship. I probably should have waited for it to be drier before I flipped it over. I think I've got a skooge there that I should not have gotten. If I were more careful, I would not have gotten. Okay, so we're going to do the longer pieces now, and we're going to lay them out on the tops of the nacelles. Okay, these things are going to be keeping me from getting right down on the surface like I want, so I'm going to have to... Boy, that's a nice thing about this thing, having so many panel lines on it. Makes it really easy to align a painting mask to it. That's pretty good. Now I'll put one above it. Okay. I'm just doing a light blending coat with the sky gray again, and I am masking off or blocking off the JN gray when I come to it, so that I don't get anything over that, because I'm quite happy with how those are looking. But I can come back in here and kind of tamp down some of the high contrast. Let me do a little bit here. Let me see, I need to block. Okay, let me cut a little wedge here. Okay, if I go in like this, now I still have a lot to do on the bottom, but I want to let all of this stuff dry on the top before I flip it over, because this smoke is, like I said, particularly sticky, and I don't want to, if it were regular to me, it would almost be dry by now, but these clears do take a little bit longer sometimes, and smoke is basically clear black. Okay, we're gonna let that go, and we're gonna work on this more tonight, but I want to let this dry and then come back to it in about an hour after dinner and do, yes, I'm working later today. Come back in about an hour after dinner and flip it over and do the bottom part, because I want this to be dried all night tonight so that I can take the masks off in the morning. Okay, working on the bottom here. Again, it's tough with this stand already attached. Would not do that again on the next build. I will not put the stand already attached to the ship while I paint it. It's just not natural. It ain't natural, I tell you. So I'm having to work around it, plus it's throwing a horrible shadow on everything. It's not optimal on any standard I'm used to. So the funny thing about this is that, you know, the first time you put this down and you pull it up, you spray and then you pull it up, it can look awfully stark and almost amateurish. But then you move it around a few more times, and then you start seeing all the variations that you're getting, and it turns out that it looks like a better idea in retrospect than you might give it a at first thought. because you really start adding levels of detail that are very hard to plan. Just by doing this, it makes it more random and more more random, more unplanned, more unsymmetrical. Now here's the thing, and I have preached this since day one. If you're working on doing this with a texture, I always try to keep it parallel or perpendicular, this way or this way. I don't normally will not recommend putting templates on at an angle, because then what happens is that you start introducing diagonal lines and all that kind of stuff, and that's really not what your mission statement should be. You also want to make sure that it doesn't move once you've done that, because then you get a ghosted, smeary look. And generally, well, not generally, all the time when I'm designing these, I am always designing these to be square to whatever framework they're in. They're either up this way or this way. There's never anything at a weird angle. The only time I'll break on that really is when I'm doing something radial for a saucer. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to see these templates are, or these textures are, either parallel or perpendicular. So that's the best way to lay them down. It makes it look more like the plating of a long cylinder if you're doing it that way, and you don't start introducing a bunch of weird angles on stuff. About the only time I would mix that up is if I am doing maybe an alien race on Babylon 5 or something. Then I might be more tempted to do the weird angles and oddball shapes. Yeah, just going back in and laying some shapes here and there. Oh, there's an area I can see that needs some attention. There. Okay, we're going to let that dry. And then I'm going to do come back and do the blending coat like I did on top. And then the next thing you know, we'll be ready to let this rest overnight and come back and take the templates off tomorrow morning. Okay, this is all looking very good. I think one last thing I want to do for this evening before I close it up is to do a little bit of a blending coat over top of some of this with the sky gray and maybe some of the JN gray. I like the way the JN gray is looking, so I don't think the contrast is as noticeable on that. So what I need to do is clean the brush out from this smoke, and boy, that just throws all kinds of shadows on here. I really don't like working this way tall. So I can see what's going on kind of. I'm also kind of working by flashlight here, but I don't want to get too caught up because it is storming like all get out outside, and given my history, I could lose power at any moment. So I don't want to have a bunch of wet paint sitting around with no compressor to run it. So that's why I'm kind of hurrying. After I get this one little bit done, then it really won't matter if we have a power interruption here. Okay, I just had to because I couldn't wait. I took one of the panels off. That's going to be beautiful. That's going to be lovely. Okay, well, we're going to let this dry for the rest of the night. I put on a nice light blending coat, but we are going to let that sit for the rest of the night and come back tomorrow morning and do the demasking. Welcome back, kids. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week, and this is my favorite time. I actually was holding off. I started doing this a little bit last night, and I said, no, I want to wait and do this on Friday and take my time, because it's like eating potato chips. Once you start, you don't want to stop. And what I'm doing today is I'm removing the masks. And you can see I did cheat and started in a couple of spots, notably here, back here, just to see how these were going to look. I am quite pleased with the results. So now I'm going to, without further ado, remove the rest of the templates from the hull of the ship. Now what I've got covered up still, that I still need to keep covered up, are a lot of the windows, the clear parts, the dome, the front window, the front of the nacelles, the innards of the warp engines, because there's going to be a clear coating on this yet, and I don't want to get that clear coating on those clear parts, ironically. So once we get all these off, we're ready to put the clear coat on so that we can put the minimum amount of decals on it. So let's get, without much further ado, let's get to it. For this, you need an especially sharp X-Acto, like a clean blade. And the reason you want to do that is because you're going to ever so slightly slide it up under the vinyl. And these pieces that you're never going to need again, you can be a little bit rougher with when you're taking them off than you were when you were putting them on. So this should go a lot quicker than it did as far as putting them all down. So you don't want to go nuts on it. You don't want to yank it up, because you run the risk of pulling up paint. Not that I've ever had a problem with that, ha, he said knowingly. But these are so thin that the surface area on them isn't, I won't say thin, the vinyl is thin, but the design is so thin that the surface area of any one piece isn't that big that you're going to worry about pulling up a lot of paint. Obviously, that is a bigger risk on larger pieces of vinyl. But these tiny things are, and what the tiny things do is they, I said do, they show off a lot of fine detail when you pull them off correctly. Oh, look at that. Very happy with these. Now you notice that we did two different techniques on this Enterprise as far as how we did the templates, because on the saucer, where we have a definitive pattern, we laid down the templates and we painted over them, and then we peel them up like I'm doing even as we speak. But on the secondary hull and on the neck and on the pylons, we used what I call a texture template, and we just sprayed a texture and then moved it around and sprayed it again. And that's because those areas, the secondary hull and the neck, as far as I can tell, as far as my intelligence will lend me, does not have a repeated definitive Aztec texture. So we can get away with doing a randomized texture. Now, you do have the defined areas of light and dark, which is what we did on the first round of painting. We painted in the Lynn Gray and the Sky Gray. We made those two different colors. But on top of that, there was what I would call more of a generic Aztec pattern, or a generic shaping, a generic texture that covered both of those main colors. So that's why I handled the neck and the saucer, and the neck and the pylons and the secondary hull that way. Now once I get all of these off, I will determine whether or not I need to put some sort of random texture over the whole thing. I don't think so. I think this is going to look fine just as it is. There you go. There's the first view of the Aztec saucer, the top of the saucer, obviously, and like I said, came off remarkably quicker than it went down. Still leaving the clear bits covered. These real thin windows we can take off, because it's not gonna make any big difference on the tiny windows. But the big picture window and the dome I want to keep clean. So let me get these guys off. And let's plug it in and light it up. Now obviously the nacelles are still closed, but you can see how some of these saucer lights are going to look. Let's go ahead and plug it in. Plug it in, plug it in. There you go. There's some light. Whoops. Turn that one off. Now you're seeing it. Starting to come together now. All of the windows that are going to come off. For some of them, a lot of them for the first time. These aren't as bright as I would like. And I think I skimped on the inside and didn't put a LED directly facing those, and that was my fault. Like I said, when I've built the 100th one of these, I will have worked all of that out. But on the first one, I'm still trying to find my way. I also did not block the individual light segments here on the front. That's something I probably will do in the future. But you can see even the windows that are still blocked here. I can go ahead and pop those off and see those windows shining nice and bright, and these have got covers over them still. But yeah, high hopes for the rest of it. Now what I need to do is put a cloth or a piece of foam down on the turntable so that I can put this thing over on its head and take the decal or the aztecs off the bottom of the saucer. Okay, so here you can see the bottom of the saucer with the aztecs removed, and as lovely as it is, you can see some light leakage. And I'll tell you that the light leakage is mostly based on the fact that the bulbs, the LEDs, are hot glued to the bottom of the saucer, and I probably should have put that blocking tape on first before I hot glued them down, because you can't get blocking tape under the hot glue. So you can see the 4 spots here where the bulbs are, 4 hot spots where the bulbs are mounted. Not really anything I could do at this point other than throw more paint at the top of that, but unless you're in a darkened situation, you're not really spotting them as much as you're not spotting them as much in real life, so we can leave these to go. Now I've got a little bit of gloss here to spray right in this area where the registries are going to go for the decals, and then like I said, I've left these parts covered where I don't want to get any misting on these, because then everything will get a dull coat when it's all done. Here you can see another really horrible light leak. I don't like that at all, and I will definitely on future builds be prepared to fix that. There are some light leakages. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that, but I'm not. Again, lighting is not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to talk about the painting of such. So what I'm doing now is getting ready to gloss over the areas where the decals are going to go. And the decals are pretty skimpy. They're pretty skimpy here. We've got one decal for the fantail, and we've got all the markings, and then we've got some what look like thruster decals to go down. But what I think we're getting shorted on is all of the phaser banks. I believe that there are some details that will only show up in the wallpaper decals. And if you only get them by buying the wallpaper decals, then I think you're getting shorting. I think you're shorting the people who are not going to be going that route. So now I need to go in and start painting the details in. And I'm going to put just little dollops of gold in the areas where the phaser banks are sitting. Okay, so I've just sprayed some gloss on the areas where the decal goes, and that is the Vallejo gloss varnish with a little bit of thinner in it. notably on where the registries go and where these little thruster decals go, and there's one that goes on the fantail there. But we're going to let that dry. I'm going to grab some lunch, and when I come back, we're going to be ready for decaling. And then after the decaling comes the overall flat coating, and we'll be done. It has stopped raining for the first time all day, which is great. It really broke the back of this heat wave we've been riding, so I'm not going to complain about getting some much needed rain. But it does make it hard to A, open the window and ventilate very well, or B, take something outside to paint it. So I may have to duck out to the back porch to put the flat coat on this, but we'll see how that goes when we need it. Okay, we're going to put the big numbers down now because there's no reason not to, and if it's going to screw up, best to know now. Okay, getting a horrible glare off of that light. Okay, so the 1 looks to want to be on that grid line. And the N wants to be on, the inside of the N wants to be on that grid line. And that brings everybody up into their proper arc. If I do that. Okay. What do you think? Look very nice. Just double checking that. Man, this is a weird angle. Okay. That wants to be. Throw some more water on this. I need to move it around a bit. Since it is all one decal, the spacing between the name and the number will take care of itself as long as you let it lay flat. What I want to do is make sure the distance between the, actually, let me get a pencil. It's easier to see that way. I'm more worried about the distance between the bottom of the 1 and the bottom of the N are even with this stripe that I have painted, and it looks like that needs to come down just a touch. Okay, so now should be able to lay the center, squeegee out from both sides, and dry the water up as I go. And there you have it. Let this dry, and then we will put a clear coat over it, which should flatten all that carrier film. There you go, dun dun dun. I don't know, I'm a sucker for the old Federation style typeface, but I know everybody and their brother likes using this font. It's been used everywhere. I'm not a big fan of the 1 in this font. There is a variant 1 that doesn't have this long top leg on it that I would prefer they had used, but what can you do? The air is the air. What can be done, as T'Pau Vulcan once said. The air is the air. What can be done? Okay, which is, coming from a planet of high-thinking scientists, not exactly the kind of enlightened leadership you want to have. So we're going to let, actually what I can do is take my, where is it? I got to find it. Yes, everything falls on this stupid desk. I need better... okay, Solvaset. Solvaset will pull it down into these panel lines. Just do a little bit of... there you go, and then let it go. Do not touch it, because it's going to start to wrinkle up. And you're going to think, oh my God, it's wrinkling up, it's going to be ugly. And that's when you screw something up. So don't touch it. So now we're going to let that dry. And I'm going to go over here and do the pennants on the... I'm going to do my pennants. Yes, I'm doing my pennants. I'm going to do the pennants, not pennants, on the warp engines. And I wish they had made this all one decal. They did not. Probably for the first time in decades, this has not been one singular decal. The problem with that is you lose the ability to space out the lettering and everything. And the biggest problem I have with this kit, with this design, not this kit, is that the red stripe pennants are raised. They're raised plates for some reason instead of what you would normally expect them to be, just painted on stripes. So I don't get that. I don't understand why they're doing that. And if you'll notice, they did it for the front. You can see that right there. There's the outline of the front, but nothing on the back. They did not do a similar... There's a outline of the stripe on the front, but there's no similar outline on the back. So I say do it one or the other, but make up your mind. And now you also have to do your own leveling of the lettering, which used to be easier when it was all one decal. So we're going to put it in the water as one decal, and then we'll put it on 3 separate pieces. Okay, here are the pennants and the lower pennants and the registry pennant. And that red really does pop. Really does pop on the against all those gray plates. Nice. Okay, we're down to it. All the decals are down. I'm painting some tiny details in using the gold paint to paint in. And I'm taking my cues from what's on the box art, because the that's where they put your color pictures and their decal information, and that's what you're left working with. So that's what you need to know. So I just did some gold. I put some gold in the phaser bits here. I think they stand out a little. Oops, helps you could see them. I put the gold in the phaser bits. That helps a bit. And back here at the rear end of the thrusters. Interesting, there's like little directional decals that go over top of these boxes at the back of the nacelles. And they say caution on them, which is a wonderful thing until you get to the idea that that word caution is probably in about 4 foot, 6 foot tall letters. Interesting. I hate to be the guy that has to go out and paint that on the hull, but just tiny cautions, because if you get that close to it to read it, chances are the damage has been done. It's sort of like having a sign on a reactor that you have to go up to the reactor to read that says stay away from the reactor. Well, outside of waiting for these decals to dry a bit and seeing if there are any more little touches of paint I need to tackle here and there, we are all done except for the flat coat and then unveiling the clear bits. And once I unveil the clear bits, I can put the Nacelle Bassard collectors back on. They've been removed for safekeeping. And then we'll be done. So yes, this is going to be done this afternoon. We're only at 2 o'clock, and I've got a couple more hours at least. So I'm going to let this dry and come back to it in a bit. Alrighty, I've just come back from putting the flat coat on, and the decal carrier film has completely disappeared. Looks beautiful. Numbers look like they were painted on. I am prepared at this point to remove the last of the masks from the clear parts, and then we'll be ready to light it up. Come on, get off of there. Now, this is the point where I usually start making all of my my rationalizations for why I did things, but I will only say this was the first of many, many builds of this fine and lovely ship that I plan on doing. So I was not planning on putting all the bells and whistles in the very first one. There are certainly things I will do differently in future versions. But let me get the masks off of here. There we go. That's cleaned off. And now the big ones on the warp hinges. Now, first thing I would do next time, obviously, would be to not put it on the base right away. That was, again, I've said that 100 times. You know, you've heard me say that. So I'm not gonna. But, you know, obviously there are more elaborate lightings you can do. You can put blinkies in the navs. You could put strobes in it if you'd like. You can use the commercially available lighting kit, which I, again, chose not to. And let me pop these Nacelle covers back in, or Bassard collector covers back in. Try not to do this on, break anything on camera, that would be embarrassing. There we go. And then we'll put the other one on. Like I said, we'll put the other one on. Come on. All the fine folks are watching online. Don't embarrass me. Come on. There we go. That's on. Oh, I need to take all of the tiny, tiny ovals off of the backs of this finally. But I want to get these big ones off of here. These are off. Now it's going to take a minute or two to get all these tiny ovals off of the rear end of the nacelles, so let me turn the camera off and I'll be right back. Okay, here is your comparison. That is the opened up nacelle. This is the one with the light with the mask still on it. Mask still on it. Masks removed. So let me get these ones removed. There you go, friends. We have a finished Enterprise. Always a good day when you've got a finished Enterprise. Now, I may go back and make this base look like a planet or something. I got a lot of the flat clear on top of this overspray, which wasn't something I was thinking about like I should have been. So I think if I can maybe make this look like Talos 4, that would be nice. But that's something I could do on my own time, on my own leisure. I don't have to bore you with that. Just doing a light sanding now to scuff up that black base. And I think we are in good shape. I could paint some clouds on there. That could be fun. Again, no turny turns. Oh, I know what I forgot. I forgot the fiber fill. There, now the fiber fill is in the Bassard collectors, and those hot spots have disappeared. But look at that. A finished enterprise is a happy enterprise, and a happy enterprise is a happy Lou. Just something about it. Brings a smile to my face. Looky there, looky there. Even without the lights on, she is a pretty, pretty ship. Well, here you go. If any model I've built lately deserves to be photographed in front of the Starfield tarp, it is the mighty USS Enterprise. You see the wonderful Aztecing there. That's your typical entering standard orbit view right there. Not 100% wild about some of the color choices on the ship, not my recreation of those color choices. This area being darker is an interesting take. It's not something I would have immediately done, but having painted this ship, literally painted pictures of it and or drawn cartoons of it, that area was always tough to build or draw. So having that additional detail there does help sell the lower decks there. But there you go. One of the first of what I'm sure is going to be a fleet of these ships before I lay my head down for the permanent dirt nap. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of this quick 2-week build for the mighty Starship Enterprise. Like I said, I'm sure I will be revisiting this kit many, many times. It goes together wonderfully. It is a feat of engineering. Like I said, it only took them 50 years to figure out how to put these pylons into a kit that will not bow. There are problems with this kit. There are light leaks issues. I'm not wild about the fact that it's hard to differentiate between windows and the navigational lights. Those are going to be something that needs to be worked out. Now, lest you think I was being too light on the good people at Round 2, because I always find a typo. I always find a typo or something wrong in their instructions. Believe it or not, did not find anything. I'm looking, I didn't find any part numbers that were kind of off, because I honestly didn't use the part numbers. That's so intuitive to put together that I didn't really notice if the part numbers were right or wrong. Everything here looks to be spelled correctly. Let's see. I'm not going to go through bit by bit. I will check the box. Checking the box. Okay. Well, here's one. That didn't take long. Okay, here's one. The USS Enterprise made its return to the screen at the end of Season 1 Star Trek Discovery with dramatic effect and provided a counterpoint to the sleek design of the Discovery. The ship played a significant role, R-O-L-L. No, dear. When it's a role, it's R-O-L-E. In the second season of the show, to the cheers of Star Trek fans everywhere. Yeah. Tiny typo there. Role, when it is a part to play, is a R-O-L-E. Roll, when you are spinning it, is an R-O-L-L, or if it's a delicious cinnamon roll. But either way, Round 2 thought they were going to get past the old proofreading eyes. That doesn't happen very often. So until next week, when we'll be starting something brand new, I've got to get working on making these templates ready for you, the general public, so that you may paint your ship and not have to rely on wallpapering decals that will dictate what color your ship should be. So until then, be good to each other, enjoy yourself, get out in the sun as much as possible, and believe me, you should. You can't really see it on the shirt, but the shirt says trick yourself before you wreck yourself. Have a good week. We'll see you here next time. Be good.